Do you think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism or just?
Nope, in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled.
Hey there, my friends. Stan Gray here with TRQ, The Right Questions. Got an interesting story to share with you today. This was not a part of my normal rotation. I already had everything ready for the holidays and all that stuff. But this Tucker Carlson interview came out a few weeks ago, and it came across my feed, and I really felt like I needed to talk about it on this channel. And I want you to walk through this with me. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can and not ramble, but I saw a lot of channels which shall not be named, former friends of mine or current friends of mine, who completely buy into this story of Tucker Carlson tells about being attacked by a demon in his bed and being physically lacerated by demonic claws. I'm going to go through this video, talk about his relaying this story and the logical inconsistencies and strange little tidbits that people seem to just let wash over them, as most Christian people are known to do. So as we look through this, I'm not a body language expert or anything like that, but as a former police officer and as a human being, there are certain things when you're talking to someone that really stick out as far as whether they're being truthful or not. And Tucker Carlson displays so many tells of someone who is completely bullshitting his way through a story for his own purposes, and we'll talk about that as well. It's so clear to me that he's lying in telling this story. And I'm going to present the interview in its entirety, and I'm going to explain my thoughts as we go along. Let's get started. Let's get back into the video.
Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon. Or by something unseen that left
Is that right?
claw marks on my sides, on my...
So it left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah.
Interesting. He was attacked by a demon, left physical claw marks that are still there right now to this day. Let's see if he's willing to back up this story with by showing the obvious evidence that he apparently has readily available right here on his body. That'd be really a compelling evidence right there.
A year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside, and then I walked in, and my wife and dogs had not woken up, and they're very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder, and I was just in my boxer shorts, and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder, and they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
Okay, something about this part of the story makes me feel like I'm talking to a 10-year-old who's telling me a completely made up, bogus story. He says, if you look back here, there's this technique that some people use when they're speaking and telling stories. They'll say something, and if they don't get the reaction that they're waiting for or that they want, they will add a detail. And oftentimes that detail just raises the stakes a little bit. So look at this interaction one more time and tell me if you can spot the moment where he's waiting for a reaction from his conversation partner, doesn't get it, and then increases the intensity of what he's saying.
Claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder, and they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah.
So he was expecting, when he says, I had claw marks on either side underneath my arms, look at his face. He's expecting some kind of shock or something from his counterpart here, but he doesn't get it. Look at his face.
And on my left shoulder.
Pause for about 2 seconds, and then no reaction, and they're bleeding. Then he's mysteriously fidgeting with his ears and scratching himself. He's leaning away from the guy he's talking to and not looking at him. And that's when he gets the reaction.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks.
And then he goes back to the actual claw marks, as if to say, Yeah, that's what I was telling you the first time. That was supposed to be so amazing and mind blowing, is that I had claw marks on my body. You didn't react then until I said they were bleeding. Then all of a sudden you react, so I got to call back to that. It's just a funny turn of events. Which, by the way, spoiler alert, he's not going to show the claw marks that he says are there, which would really add to his credibility for this story. He's just not going to do that. And I really wonder why.
I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails.
Yeah, it's hilarious to be mauled by demons,
yeah.
right? Oh, okay, right there. Sorry. I was talking over him, but what he just said was, oh, the claw marks, they don't fit my hands. So if he pulled up his shirt and there were 4 huge, widespread claw marks on his body, and he says, see, my hands are this big, the claw marks are this big. There's no way I could have done this, which that would also be kind of BS, because he could have made those marks. But why would he? That's like, I don't see this man, Tucker Carlson, as the type who would intentionally lacerate his own body for clout within the Christian community. So if he did show scars from lacerations from a gigantic claw all over his body, I would be saying to myself, okay, now we have a conversation here. Now we have a story. We need to look into this and see what the heck happened with him. I mean, am I going to jump to say, oh, it was demons? Or, oh, that must mean that one of the many religions that mention demons is true? No, that's not what I'm going to do, because that doesn't make logical sense to do so. What he's saying here could easily be bolstered by showing physical evidence that he's claiming is right here on his body, just underneath an 1.5 inches of fabric, and he's not doing it. So that's a huge red flag.
That happened. So
that happened. I'm sure it did, Tucker.
I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did.
Okay. He says, I had no idea what that was. I'm not from a world where things like that happen. And I've never heard of anything like that happening before. He never heard of someone getting cut up in their sleep. And he had no idea what that was. But listen to what he immediately jumps to somehow, even though he's never heard, supposedly, in his 55 years of living, he's never heard about someone being assaulted in their sleep by an unseen entity. I guess he's never seen movies or TV shows either. That's really strange.
Or I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did. Okay, that was going to be my question.
Yeah. I don't understand to this day. I'm not going to put it.
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the.
Well, it didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now.
You're right. It doesn't make any sense now. But he's saying somehow, even though he has no experience with this type of stuff, he knew that this was a spiritual attack. I'm trying to understand, what does he mean by that? What does that mean to never have even heard of the concept of something like this happening? And when it does happen, you instinctively, maybe he's saying that he instinctively knew that it was spiritual. And with all this, he's building towards something. He's like pussyfooting around it a little bit, and he's beating around the bush, but he's trying to endear himself to the Christian community. He has been for quite some time now, ever since he's become more of a right-wing pseudo-political figure. You know, he was in the news, he got fired, and he has since developed an extremely profitable following. And he was one of the highest paid news anchors in the world at one point. And he's making that money by farming off of Christians, pretty much. And this is, to me, a very strong push on his part to cementing this relationship with the Christian community and becoming one of them in a very extreme way. Like he's doing the speed run of indoctrinating himself. It's kind of fascinating to look at.
But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next day like?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I thought that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets and I realized that was not a dream at all. So I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that.
So 2 things here. He had bloody sheets. His wife was in the room with him. Those 2 things are what I would call valuable evidentiary aspects of this story. If he said, hey, look, here's the bloody sheets, here are the scars that I have from this demon attack, and here's my wife who was witness to the fact that I woke up lacerated with at least 10 to 12 lacerations on my body, and the scars are still there. Here's all this evidence for the story I'm talking about right now. And to be fair, devil's advocate, or Tucker's advocate in this case, I might wake up tomorrow morning and see that Tucker Carlson has posted pictures of a bloody blanket and a video of his wife giving a testimony about what she saw. Not that that would be super credible. And probably the most credible aspect of all would be him showing gigantic, crazy looking scars all over his body from demon attack. But I have a feeling that's not going to happen because people don't need it to happen. If you look at the interviewer smiling and nodding his head excitedly, he was there. He was being told this story for the first time. No one else has heard this story before he did. And he didn't think, oh man, let me see your shoulder real quick. The scars that you say are on your shoulder. Let me see your abdomen, whatever. Let me talk to your wife and let's bring her onto the interview and she could tell me what she saw that night. Nothing. He just eats it up because that's typically what Christians want to do. They just want to be told and reassured that what they believe is correct and that it's all, everything's all good in the hood. They don't have to do anything additional. They don't have to change anything. They don't have to re-examine anything. And whenever I say that, Christians come in the comments of my videos and they say, oh, that's not what Christians want. Christians aren't the type of people who just want to be reassured and placated. But look at this interview. Look at the guy's face when he's being told this very dubious story from this guy who obviously has the lying skills of a toddler. He's just lapping it up like a thirsty dog. Like it's really strange to see so many people buying into a story like this. But at the same time, it's not strange because I am very aware of the reasons why people believe things like this, So let's continue though. He's got a little bit more to say.
And she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about? Yeah.
So apparently this type of thing happens all the time. And there are no Twitter or Reddit feeds that I know of that are littered with images of people's lacerated bodies. And I would imagine, especially younger Christians, if they had the ability to gain instant clout by showing their horrifically mutilated bodies online, proof of demon attacks, it would be freaking everywhere. It would be happening every day. Somewhere in the world, a Christian would be mauled by a demon, or a non-Christian would be mauled by a demon and then convert and then show their testimony and share their story everywhere they possibly could in order to become famous and become relevant in their community. That would be very interesting if that was to happen. But these people want to live in a world that is fantastical and magical, much more so than the real world. They can't find magic and wonder in the normal world, so they have to adhere to these fantasies of spiritual warfare and battle and craziness going on behind the scenes all the time that they have to contend with. And I'm not going to say that none of them can appreciate the wonder and beauty of the real world, but I'm telling you, I've seen so many people and known so many people that are fixated on these ideas of spiritual warfare, having to constantly combat evil entities through prayer and words of power and things like that. And it's like growing up with people like this, I've always had the feeling that, like, man, is it really not enough? The regular things happening in your life, are they really so boring to you that you have to insist and bathe yourself in this whole view of you're constantly under fire by forces that are beyond sight and beyond our understanding? But it makes for a great story if you're not thinking too hard, an interesting diversion and kind of entertaining when you're living in that bubble, But for somebody outside the bubble, it just looks silly.
So, I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me, and that did happen to me, and then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible.
Okay, so this experience somehow instinctively caused him to want to read the Bible and dig into it. Why? How? Who knows? Some Christians might say, hey, that was the Spirit of God telling you, giving you this warning, like, hey, you need to get yourself right. I'm sure many people would agree with that, but it is very convenient that at this time when he's really trying to push hard to get himself ingratiated into the Christian community, when there's talks of him possibly running for political office. He's been cozying up to Donald Trump, and other whisperings are floating around about him being involved in the American political system in the near future. This is a really convenient time for him to go public with this type of story.
Which I then started without any study aids or anything. I bought a Bible that didn't have any. I'm not interested in editorializing in the Bible. I just want to read it and see what's in there myself. I have very low levels of trust for Christian pastors, most of whom, I'm just not a fan at all. And sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. And so I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to see what's in there. And so I spent a year and a half reading it, and then I started rereading it. And it was just a transformative experience for me, but I'm not holding myself out as someone from whom you could get theological advice, because I'm
Sure,
not.
of course.
I that know. I don't understand any of it. But yeah, that happened.
God
to me.
allowed the demon?
I have no idea what happened. All I know is I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. No one has to believe me. I don't care.
I'm glad he doesn't care whether people believe him or not, because I certainly do not. I think his entire story is completely made up bullshit. And if it wasn't, he would be a little bit more forthcoming with the clear evidence that he is in possession of. Another thing that comes to mind is, and I have vast experience with this, I've been on YouTube a lot longer than many of you know, and I can say I've heard many, many stories, including experienced myself, the phenomenon called sleep paralysis, in which, historically people have believed that demons come to you in your sleep and try to kill you, try to suffocate you. They do whatever, all kinds of very uncomfortable, icky, and horrifying things to you in your sleep. And some people believe these are actual demons interfering with your life experience. As for me, I believe that it's simply a natural phenomenon that happens, and it's basically a cross between a nightmare and physical paralysis. When your body goes to sleep, you secrete these neurotransmitters that prevent you from moving around and acting out your dreams. If you wake up at the wrong time, sometimes those chemicals are still in your system, and it makes it very difficult for you to move, and it can even feel like you're completely paralyzed. It's a terrifying sensation. I've had it happen to me dozens of times. And sometimes when you're in that state, you're awake, halfway awake, and you're looking around, and you can literally hallucinate and see entities or people or creatures interacting with you even. One time I had this sleep paralysis experience where I was laying in my bed and I saw a child walking towards my bed. I thought it was my son. It was in the middle of the night. I didn't know what he was doing up. But when this child emerged into my view, I saw that this was like some kind of strange, non-human, baby-shaped entity that came up to me and bit the heck out of my hand. It was very painful, but I woke up moments later realizing, oh, well, that was a nightmare and I was experiencing sleep paralysis. I've even had times where I saw this shadowy entity in my hallway and I would be trying to get up, but my body would be completely frozen to the point where I couldn't breathe. And in my experience, I would literally pass out by a lack of oxygen and wake up in my bed again. And that happened to me like 6 times. And only the last time of this series of events did I see the actual shadow man in the hallway. If I was a Christian, I probably would look at that and say, oh, well, there must be a demon attached to me, or he's in my house or something like that. But I know, because of the vast array of other nightmares and things that I've had in my life, there's no telling what you're going to see when you're having a nightmare. Your brain and your mind can conjure all kinds of visions and hallucination. So when someone tells you that something happened to them when they were either asleep or when they were about to lay down to go to sleep, or they were tired and they were laying on the couch, it's almost always a nightmare or a dream. And some people, they have to make more of it than that. It can't just be that simple, and it can't be that mundane. Their life has to be more interesting than that. And unfortunately, that's the way some people see the world. So let's see if there's anything else of note that we need to see in this video.
But that happened to me, and so I just was like, wow, that's real.
So he suggested, or he said like 4 or 5 different times, yeah, this happened, that really happened, this is real, that's real. He says that like 4 or 5 times, and that's another kind of hallmark of someone who's bullshitting you. If you take nothing else from this video, just remember, if somebody's fidgeting and they're like speaking to you as though they are waiting for a response, and if they don't get the response, they intensify the story, you should probably doubt what they're saying, and just ask for a little bit more evidence, especially if they're telling you that they were mauled by a demon and they don't want to show you the scars. Just general advice for life. Otherwise, you're going to end up believing a lot of crazy, nonsensical things that you probably would be better off not believing. Just my 2 cents there.
Whatever that is, I'm even not sure what it is.
It's very real. And so then that presence of that evil launches something.
So yeah, that's the video. It's obviously a big announcement. He had this biblical experience and that the Bible profoundly affected him. He didn't say how, but it's probably going to be enough for most Christians that are, especially conservative Christians, to buy into whatever claims he makes about Christianity and Christian nationalism or any other thing of that nature. Very interesting situation here. The channel that this full interview is on, if you want to watch the full uninterrupted video, is The Orthodox Ethos. And if you go on YouTube and you type Tucker Carlson Demon Attack, it'll pop up there. Yeah, it's got 500,000 views. So a lot of people are seeing this, and then even more people than that are talking about it on other political channels and news channels and stuff like that. Who knows? Maybe by the time I upload my video, he will have gone public with the actual evidence of all this crazy demonic activity that, according to him, happens all the time. And he will just be a drop in the bucket in his evidence that's available, even though nobody else really puts out credible evidence for this type of thing happening. That's weird, isn't it? Let me know what you think about this, because I am completely convinced that he's fully lying about it, and he's not even doing it confidently. He's speaking, the words that he's saying are somewhat confident, but his body language is extremely reserved in the way that he's communicating himself. I kind of want to hear from people who do believe him. I mean, don't just tell me, hey, yeah, this happens every day. I don't need to hear that. He already said it. Give me the reasons why you believe this specific story. If you do, I would love to know. So the question for today is, do you believe Tucker Carlson's story about being mauled by a demon? And if you do, why do you believe it? What about his delivery of the story makes you feel like he's telling the truth? That's what I really want to know. And don't just tell me it happens all the time, because there's no evidence to prove that. Don't tell me it happened in the Bible, because most of the times in the Bible, it's either completely silly, the stories, or it's obviously a regular disease or illness being mistaken for demonic possession, which is also something that shouldn't have happened in the Bible. For example, when Jesus finds the boy that literally has epilepsy, and he says that it was a demon that was afflicting the boy. He shakes, he falls onto the ground, he falls into fire sometimes because he can't control his epileptic seizures. But, it's a demon, because we're too primitive to know that there is a disease where these things happen, and it happens to people all the time now, and it's not a demon. It's something that needs to be treated medically. Don't give me all that. Just give me what about his performance in this video makes you believe him. That's what I want to know, please. So anyway, my friends, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more of it. And I hope you have a happy holiday. I'm Stan Gray. And remember, if you want to know the truth, you've got to ask the right questions. I'll see you later.